Hello and welcome. My name is Roger Markarian. I want to welcome you to my program Inspired by Speaking. I'm a DTM and have been speaking for the last 15 years. My vision is to help individuals who have challenges writing and speaking. In this program, you will hear others' inspired messages. Throughout this video, you will hear tips, tricks, and ideas to become a better speaker and writer. Allow what you hear to resonate so you can take action. Learn from those who are taking action right now. Thanks for being here.
I have a fantastic guest. In fact, someone I've known for a very short time, but someone I've heard speak a few times and has done a great job. Somebody brings a great personality, a nice smile. That's Joyce Grant. Joyce, hey, welcome, and thanks for being here today.
Hi, Roger. Thanks for having me.
Hey, love having you. Hey, let me ask you a few questions. How long have you been in Toastmasters for?
I've been in Toastmasters now for just over 3 years.
Why did you join?
I joined because a club was started at my workplace, and so they were doing an open house, and I thought I'd go check it out. And as somebody who's an accountant, I have to talk in front of people. I've got to talk about a lot of technical details. And so I thought this would be something that would be helpful for me in terms of communicating with others, especially with information that tends to be very difficult to digest.
Wow, I love it. So you started at your work, but you're not at your work doing that now, are you?
It's still considered a work club, but obviously in this day and age, we're now virtual. And so we're now a virtual club that's open to, well, everyone now, not just people in our building.
Got it. And so what is the name of your club and where are you guys located?
So the name of my club is Jabbers, and we are located in Saanich, BC at the Vancouver Island Technology Park. Although today you'll find us on Zoom.
Is that the only group that you participate in?
I also participate with the Couch and Toastmasters, who are located up island in around Couch and Bay, and they're also virtual as well, and that's how we meet.
So you belong to two groups now. You started off 3 years ago, and now you belong to two groups.
Mm-hmm.
So there must be some kind of internal motivation for you to participate at two groups. What is it that you love about it that makes you participate in two groups?
Well, Roger, they both have very different dynamics. For example, my first club, Jabbers, it tends to be a little bit more business, professional oriented in terms of the type of people who come and then the type of topics you're going to speak as well, and the focus of what you want to learn. My other club, Couchin, it's more about the fun and the interaction, the camaraderie you build with your fellow Toastmasters.
I do know this club very well, and there's definitely camaraderie there. I love that club. What made you decide, this might not be such a bad idea for me to participate in? What was a tipping point for you to say, you know what, this is something I have to do outside of work?
Well, Roger, I've got a very interesting story to tell you, and well, confession more or less. And that is, although I tend to present myself as being an extrovert, I am very much an introvert. I mean,
oh, come on.
My profession says it all, right?
That is so hard for me to believe.
Well, people think I'm this really confident, poised, put together person. Inside, I'm just falling to pieces. I get nervous, I get really jittery and sweaty, especially when I have to speak in front of other people, and more importantly, in front of a group, let's say in a professional setting, where I've got to present some ideas, or even in like a town hall situation. Just the idea of having to raise my hand or just speaking up in that kind of setting just really did not bode well for me. And oftentimes I would try to bypass it and hope that somebody else would answer those questions. At some point I realized that if I wanted to be seen, if I wanted to heard, if I wanted to get the answers I'm looking for, I needed to find courage within myself and overcome this internal struggle.
Love it. God, great nuggets of wisdom, right? You're right. You do get sweaty palms. You do get a little nervous. You feel that anxiety, but you start to put things in perspective, and you're able to deliver as a result of doing that. Well, obviously something must be going right because you're doing it in two different clubs, for God's sakes.
It's funny, Roger, I think the biggest thing that Toastmaster provides you, and I think the biggest thing that helps a lot of people, is practice, right? It's the idea of getting in front of people, getting over it, and realizing, well, that wasn't so bad. I mean, I think about the first time I've ever done table topics, and my mouth was just like a desert, and I was shaky. And then afterwards, my mind was just racing with all these million thoughts of like, oh, I could have said this, or should have done that. But after a while, you just let it go. You realize, When you get the feedback, hey, you did a really good job. And, you learn to accept that, or you learn how to just make those incremental improvement as opposed to reinventing the wheel.
Once we allow this internal judge that we have to go, what ends up happening is we end up becoming ourselves and who we're supposed to be, and we start delivering powerful presentations. You just mentioned practice. Tell us a little bit about maybe how you practice a speech, just to kind of give someone out there an idea of what kind of time you invest in it.
Well, Roger, when I do a prepared speech, what I typically would do is I write in a little outline. I might actually write the entire speech out once, and then I would actually rehearse it a couple of times, mostly for a sense of getting the timing of it, making sure that it's falling within parameters. And secondly, to iron out some of the little bugs that might come. For example, when you write something, it may sound great until you try to say it and you realize it's actually quite cumbersome and awkward. So it's just kind of like reiterating or simplifying or just learning how to get to the point of what you want to say or deliver something with a lot of fortitude.
Share with me and the audience, what are you referring to when you say an outline?
So when I look at a speech, I look at a topic, I'll come up with a few points. I'll try to expand on them. And then from there, it's something that I will develop. So for example, it might be that I dial back a few things because it's pretty lengthy, expand on some other points. Interestingly enough, as you go through the process and when you start putting together points and little facts and little nuggets, you suddenly realize the direction you want your speech will go. And then sometimes you end up editing a lot of content, which is actually another good thing because it now creates future content for future speech. So sometimes one idea will spawn 4 speeches, and it's just a matter of time, really, that creates that opportunity.
So when you talk about your ideas and you start putting them down on paper, how is that process? Do you actually write physical sentences, or what do you actually do?
What I would normally start with, I would start with just some points, just a few words.
Nice.
And then from there, flesh out a few sentences, maybe find a few quotes, and then just add on from there. So really it starts like from the ground up, from just simple singular words all the way up to full-blown sentences and paragraphs.
So this is really important. What do you do to expand those thoughts? So if you use a sentence or a quote or a word, share how you build that into something with a little bit more life in it.
Well, as an example of a quote, Roger, you'd look at a quote, you would say the quote, obviously state who wrote the quote, maybe put some context to it, maybe give your opinions to it, maybe put a counter argument. It's something that can just grow on its own just from putting some sort of spin that's of your own into something.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. In fact, it's funny. Most often I think I'm going to go one direction and I ended up delivering a speech in a completely different direction. But you're right. You write these words, the ideas, and they seem to be the seed of where we take off from. And it's amazing what we can create. I also love the fact that you said this, and this is such an important nugget. If you continue just to write down ideas and thoughts, what ends up happening is those become triggers for more thoughts and ideas. And all of a sudden we end up with not one sentence, but 2 sentences, 3 sentences, a paragraph, and now we have a speech, which is awesome. It's just really important to allow yourself to go. Nicely done, Joyce. Is that something that you brought to Toastmasters, or is that something that you learned at Toastmasters?
I think it's something that I learned after having to write speeches on my own. Yeah, I think it's something I pretty much learned from Toastmasters, maybe not directly from the actual program itself or from a mentor or from feedback. It's just something that I just developed as a result of having to create speeches from thin air.
Would you say that your speech writing has improved tenfold from the time when you first started?
That's a great question, Roger. I'm still not quite sure. I think in some ways it has improved in some aspects. So for example, being able to write, for example, a personal spin or a focus of a particular topic. But in other ways, like for example, if I had to write for somebody else or write on expressively on a topic, that might be a little bit more difficult, I'd say, something I haven't really explored yet.
Would you say now, being in it for 3 years, Joyce, that maybe got some of the jitters out?
You know, it's funny, Roger. When I first after the first year, I felt fine, I felt comfortable. And then at that point, I also then start looking elsewhere. So when I joined Cowichan as an example, I finally found myself with the jitters again. And it might be the situation of familiarity, or it might have been the size. So for example, the two clubs I am part of, they're very a different demographic, different size, and as a result, you're dealing with a completely different audience, and perhaps that change of how the audience was and the type of audience created some of that nervousness. But afterwards, after that initial nervousness, once again, just calm back down. Once again, using some of the techniques of Toastmasters, which is, sit back, breathe, don't overanalyze.
And don't overanalyze. Boy, we are our worst critic, unfortunately. And as a result, so many people don't speak. They're so afraid to use their voice because they're so fearful of what people might think. And as a result, they don't say anything when they may have had something to say that was of great value. That's the sad part of the whole thing. What would you say is maybe one thing that you gained? So for people who might be listening in, that they're saying, God, this sounds really interesting. I really like what I'm hearing. It's a lot like how I feel. What have you gained as a result of going on a weekly basis to Toastmasters, or just participating in a speaking organization?
Well, Roger, what I've gained from Toastmasters and from doing this on a weekly basis, it's been composure. I think, like most of us, we're kind of scrambling when we're put on the spot, or we get really anxious about things. It's just like anything else, like, especially when you, like, for example, in the realm of emergency preparedness, the first thing they tell you is stay calm. And so when you have that, it gives you more confidence, and it projects more confidence to your audience, as well as somebody who has authority or has experience or understanding that they want to glean from you. So it's just kind of taking those few seconds, realizing that you have that time for yourself to really think, compose, and respond. You don't have to do anything knee-jerk.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that as well. And those are simple skills that you learn over a period of time, but by implementing over the period of time, you get better at it. So who inspires you? I'm kind of curious. Is there somebody that inspires you, somebody that has really made a difference? Who inspires you to kind of push yourself to really do things outside the box?
That's a great question. I haven't actually put much thought into who inspires me to really be the best version of myself or push myself further. I'd probably have to think on that one.
Okay, well, no problem. I was just kind of curious. Well, I just wanted to say I really appreciate you really taking some time here and sharing some great wisdom, and obviously people will benefit from this. What message might you want to close with, Joyce?
I found that Toastmasters has been a really good experience, and it's pretty much, if you think of it this way, as kind of a 360. I mean, a lot of people go into it with the desire to improve their speaking, their public speaking abilities, and their confidence, but there's so much more that comes out of it as well. If you think about it, for example, it's about learning how to become an active listener, how to become a better leader, how to communicate people in a more better way, really. So I think the scope for the Toastmasters is huge. If you put it in that context, it's not just for people who are afraid of speaking. It should be it's something for everybody, really.
There is no one who could not benefit from enhancing any portion of their communication skills. Thank you so much for taking time. That was easy, wasn't it?
That was great. Thank you so much, Roger. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you being here, Joyce. This will add a huge impact to somebody out there who's listening, who might have some of those questions that typically most people have when they want to join a speaking organization. Toastmasters just so happens to be a great venue to do it at. I'm really glad to have met you. I'm glad that you've also taken some time. Again, thank you, Joyce, so much for being here. You have a pleasant evening, and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Roger. Have a good one.
That was a terrific interview with Joyce Grant. I'd like to thank my guest today, Joyce Grant. She left us a tremendous amount of wisdom and great nuggets of information. By all means, leave us some positive feedback on the channel. Joyce would love to hear from you. If you'd like to hear more videos like this, please subscribe. We'd love to have you on a regular basis. If you have any questions, you can always contact me at inspiredbyspeaking@gmail.com. If you'd like to be on the channel, if you'd like to be interviewed, please reach out to me at inspiredbyspeaking@gmail.com. It was great having you. Again, thanks, and we look forward to seeing you again.